Jesus welcomes the children. Let the little children come to me. Mark 10:14. The sun was setting low upon the hills of Judea, and the air was thick with dust and voices. Children's laughter mixed with the steady hum of men speaking about the law, and the cries of vendors filled the streets. I had been walking with my disciples from one village to another, teaching as we went, stopping to heal those who cried out, pausing to share the kingdom with all who would listen. The people followed me not just for the miracles, but for the hope that my words carried. There was an energy in the air, restless, expectant, hungry. They were looking for life, for something greater than the endless toil of their daily struggles. And in the midst of this crowd, I began to notice the little ones. Their small hands clung to their mother's robes, their eyes wide with wonder and curiosity. Some held half-eaten figs, others clutched simple wooden toys. They were not concerned with the debates of the elders or the pride of the Pharisees. Their hearts were open, their laughter unrestrained, their trust complete. They longed not for position or wealth, but for love, for safety, for a voice that welcomed them. They reminded me of why I had come, not just for the wise or the mighty, but for all, especially the least and the overlooked. Before I go on, I want to invite you, beloved listener, to join this journey with me. Subscribe now to this channel, not just for stories, but for encounters with the living Word. Let us walk together, chapter after chapter, moment after moment, so you never miss what I long to share with you. I remember how children often ran to me. Their feet were quick, their steps unsteady, their giggles contagious. They found in my presence something their hearts already knew but had never seen fully revealed: peace, joy, and the embrace of the Father. Sometimes they simply wanted to sit at my feet, listening while I spoke. At other times they brought flowers or stones they thought were treasures. To the world, these gifts were nothing. To me, they were priceless, for they came from hearts unspoiled by pride. The kingdom of heaven belongs to such as these. The disciples, however, did not always understand. They thought of honor, of protecting my time, of guarding me from interruptions. They had seen the pressure of the crowds, the endless demands of the sick and desperate, and they thought they were helping by keeping the children at a distance. In their eyes, these little ones had no place near a rabbi, no role in the matters of teaching and authority. But I saw differently. To me, they were living parables of the kingdom, reminders that true greatness comes not by grasping, but by trusting. Each day as I walked, I longed for people to see with the eyes of the Father, to see that faith is not complicated, that entering the kingdom is not about intellect or achievements, but about surrender and trust. The children showed this more than anyone. Their hands reached upward, not because they could offer strength, but because they knew they needed to be carried. This is the posture of all who will enter my Father's kingdom. When I watched a child smile, I could feel the reflection of heaven in their innocence. When I heard their laughter, I was reminded of the joy my Father takes in His creation. And when I saw their tears, my heart broke, for I knew how fragile they were in a world that often overlooked them. In their eyes, I saw the very heart of the gospel, the simple, honest longing to be loved and to belong. That is what I came to give. And so, as the crowds gathered and the disciples tried to maintain order, I could see it coming, the tension, the moment when human understanding would clash with heaven's perspective. It would happen soon. It began quietly, almost unnoticed. Mothers came forward, carrying infants in their arms, while fathers led their little ones by the hand. They pressed through the crowd, their eyes pleading, their hearts hopeful. They wanted me to lay my hands upon their children, to bless them, to speak words of life over them. These were not rich or powerful families. They were ordinary people whose only treasure was their children. They longed for a touch that could change everything, for a blessing that could shape a future. But as they drew near, my disciples stepped in. I saw them stretch out their arms as barriers, shaking their heads, sending families back with stern looks and whispered warnings. They thought they were protecting me, preserving my strength for more important matters. In their minds, the cries of the sick, the debates with the scribes, the questions of men, these were worthy of my time. But children, too small, too insignificant, too distracting. The moment felt like a fracture in the air, a subtle crack in the harmony of what my father desired. For while the parents hesitated, unsure if they were welcome, I could hear the disappointment in the children's sighs. Their eager steps slowed, their bright eyes dimmed, their joy turned to uncertainty. I could feel their little hearts breaking in the silence, wondering if they truly mattered. The disciples believed they were doing good. They had seen me weary, pouring myself out day after day. They thought of order, of protecting the teacher from exhaustion. They meant well, but their perspective was too small, too bound by human calculation. They could not see that the kingdom is not built on efficiency, but on love. They forgot that my Father's heart beats especially for the humble, the weak, the ones who bring nothing but themselves. And so in that moment, a wall began to rise between the children and me, not built of stone, but of misunderstanding. A wall made of human logic, of good intentions that missed the truth. It was just a crack, but it threatened to grow, to distort the picture of who I am, and I could not allow that. I felt a deep stirring within me, a righteous fire that came not from anger against my disciples, but from zeal for the Father's heart. For if the little ones were turned away, then the very image of my kingdom would be distorted. If the smallest were silenced, then the truth of heaven's invitation would be hidden. This was more than a matter of children being ignored. This was the gospel itself at stake. I looked upon the children, some clutching their parents' robes, some nervously hiding behind them, and I knew the moment had come. The crack had appeared, and now it was time to address it. The moment could no longer be ignored. The disciples stood firm, their hands stretched out like guards at the gate, their voices sharper now, as they insisted the parents take their children away. The crowd murmured in agreement, some nodding, as if this was the proper order of things. In their eyes, children were interruptions, not participants. They were future men and women, but not yet of value in the present moment. And then I felt it, an ache deep within my spirit. It was not mere frustration, it was a holy grief. For every time a child is silenced, every time the vulnerable are pushed aside, my Father's heart is wounded. And in that instant, I could no longer stand silent. I stopped walking, my steps ceased, and the air around us seemed to still. The disciples turned, sensing the weight of my presence behind them. "Why do you hinder them?" My voice carried over the crowd, firm yet tender, filled with the authority of heaven itself. The words cut through the air, leaving no room for doubt. The children, who had been retreating in confusion, froze in place. The parents looked up, eyes wide, caught between shame and hope. The disciples lowered their hands slowly, realizing that they had misjudged the moment. I felt indignation rise, not because I was disrespected, but because my Father's will was being misrepresented. These little ones, so easily dismissed by men, were precious in the sight of heaven, and I could not allow their approach to be blocked, for they were the very picture of the kingdom. "Let the little children come to me," I said, my voice now carrying both urgency and compassion. "Do not forbid them, for the kingdom of God belongs to such as these." The silence broke into gasps. Some could not believe what they were hearing. To honor children in such a way was unheard of in our culture, where age and authority commanded respect, and youth was often overlooked. Yet here I was, elevating them, declaring them heirs of the very kingdom that prophets had long foretold. I walked forward, past my disciples, and knelt to the level of the children. Their eyes widened, filled with awe and relief. Some hesitated, unsure if they were truly welcome, while others ran forward, unafraid. I opened my arms wide, and one by one they came, hesitant steps turning into eager leaps. I embraced them, blessing them, placing my hands upon their heads, whispering words of life that the Father gave me to speak. Each child I touched was a living reminder that greatness in my Father's eyes is not measured by status, wisdom, or power, but by humility and trust. The breaking point was not simply a clash between me and my disciples, it was a revelation to the crowd. What they thought was small, I declared to be great. What they tried to silence, I called forth. And in that moment, heaven's values shattered the values of earth. As the children gathered around me, clinging to my robe, resting in my arms, the atmosphere changed. What had begun as an interruption was now a revelation. The disciples looked on, puzzled and humbled, while the crowd whispered among themselves, struggling to understand. I could feel the weight of their thoughts. Why would the teacher give such attention to children? Why elevate the least when the learned and powerful were waiting for wisdom? I lifted my eyes toward the disciples and then toward the crowd, and I spoke words that would echo through time. Truly I tell you, anyone who will not receive the kingdom of God like a little child will never enter it. A hush fell. My words struck like lightning, simple yet unstoppable. For the kingdom is not earned through status, nor conquered by intellect, nor purchased with wealth. It is received as a gift with the same trust a child shows when reaching up for the embrace of a father. I let the silence linger, allowing hearts to wrestle with the truth. Some bowed their heads, convicted. Others shook their heads in confusion, unwilling to let go of pride. But the children understood. They needed no explanation. Their trust was their testimony, their simplicity, their strength. They leaned into me with no hesitation, no calculation, no agenda, only love. And that was the point. The shift was not about exalting childhood as an age, but about exalting childlike faith as a posture of the heart. My disciples needed to see it. The crowd needed to see it. The world needed to see it. For too long, religion had become a fortress of pride, a ladder of achievement. But the kingdom I came to bring is a table of grace, where even the smallest find a seat of honor. I placed my hand on the shoulder of one child, his face radiant with joy, and looked back at my disciples. Learn from them, I said softly. Do not seek greatness as the world defines it. Greatness is here, in these little ones who trust without fear, who love without calculation, who believe without proof. The words pierced their hearts. I could see it in their eyes, the dawning realization that their idea of the kingdom had been too small. This was the shift my Father desired, to overturn their assumptions, to break their pride, to show them that the way up is down, the way to life is through surrender. And so I kept blessing the children, each one a living parable, each one a prophecy of the kind of faith my kingdom requires. My message to you today is about the children. Not just the children you see with your eyes, but the child you carry within your heart. I have a purpose for them, a purpose that reaches beyond the innocence of their youth and extends into the very fabric of eternity. When I told the disciples, "Let the little children come to me, do not forbid them, for of such is the kingdom of God," I was not merely issuing a gentle command. I was unveiling a profound truth about the very nature of my Father's kingdom. This was not a message about age, but about attitude. It was about the essence of what it means to be a citizen of heaven. My disciples, with their adult minds and worldly understanding, saw the children as an inconvenience. They saw them as a distraction from the important work of ministry. They believed that the kingdom was for the strong, the learned, the powerful. They were focused on the great things, the grand sermons, the healing of the sick, and the casting out of demons. They were trying to build the kingdom with human hands, with human ambition, and with human logic. And in doing so, they were missing the very foundation upon which the kingdom is built. They saw the children as a small matter, but I saw them as the very blueprint for my Father's house. The purpose of the children is to show you the way to me. A child does not come to me with a list of accomplishments, a resume of good deeds, or a mind full of theological debates. They come with an open heart and a pure trust. They do not calculate the cost of following me. They simply follow. They do not question my authority. They accept it. They do not worry about their worthiness. They simply know they are loved. This is the heart of the matter. The children are a living parable, a simple and beautiful illustration of what it truly means to receive the kingdom of God. The kingdom is not something you earn. It is something you receive. It is not a prize for the righteous. It is a gift for the humble. The children show you that my Father's kingdom is built on trust, not on works. It is founded on humility, not on pride. It is sustained by love, not by law. The little ones, with their complete dependence on their parents, model the perfect relationship you are meant to have with my Father. They do not worry about what they will eat or what they will wear, for they trust their Father to provide. They do not boast of their strength or their wisdom, for they know they are weak and in need of their Father's guidance. This is the eternal truth that I was revealing to my disciples. To enter the kingdom of heaven, you must become like a child. You must shed your pride, your self-sufficiency, and your worldly wisdom. And you must surrender your life to me with the same simple faith. When I hold the children, I am holding the very hope of humanity. I am embracing the innocence that you have lost and the faith that you have forgotten. When you look at a child, you are seeing a soul that is closer to the Father's heart. The purpose of their presence is to remind you of your own need to return to that state of simple, trusting dependence. They are a signpost, pointing you back to the path you have strayed from. They are a living invitation to let go of your burdens and to rest in my Father's grace. The children are not a distraction from the mission. They are the mission itself. To minister to them is to minister to me. To love them is to love the Father. To teach them is to teach the next generation of disciples. And in their simple faith, they will lead you into the very heart of the kingdom. So when you see a child, do not see an inconvenience. See a teacher. See a guide. See a mirror reflecting the path you are meant to walk. For truly, unless you turn and become like a little child, you will by no means enter the kingdom of heaven. This is the eternal purpose. It is a call to all of you, no matter your age or your stature, to come to me with the heart of a child. It is a promise that my Father's arms are open to you, and that the greatest reward in his kingdom is not found in power or prestige, but in the humble joy of being his beloved child.